Hello, hello, my loves, and welcome back to the Caim Circle Podcast, a sanctuary of truth, transformation, and radically awakened living. I am your host, Jessa Frances, a trauma-informed yoga teacher, shadow work coach, memoir writing guide, and a clean label alcohol-free beverage consultant. I'm the founder of Untoxicated and the Caim Circle. And if you're new here, a Caim, spelled C-A-I-M, is an ancient Celtic concept. It's a protective circle, a sacred space or circle that you draw around yourself, your loved ones, a ceremony, and you create a space where you can let your guard down, where you can feel held, where you can drop the masks and just be yourself. It's where you can do the real work. In our membership, we call that connection, awareness, integration, and manifestation, CAIM. We connect with ourselves, with one another. We get aware, we see the truth, we get honest, and then we integrate that awareness, that consciousness into our daily lives with love, care, and devotion. And then we build, we manifest, and we build momentum in alignment with that truth of our hearts. That's what we're doing here. We're connecting, we're getting clarity, and then we're getting the support that we need to integrate and to manifest with consciousness. So today, I'm diving deeper into that in itself. I'm diving deeper into the work that we do in the Caim Circle. And it's because I am in a raw place. I am in the thick of it right now. And I'll be real honest, I'm not exactly sure how this podcast is going to roll out, but we're going to spitball together. We're going to look at the rawness that I think a lot of us are feeling right now, because things right now just feel so uncertain and so unclear and so frustrating, and we're pushing forward with so much love and trying so hard to have integrity and honesty and to get to that truth, to get to that alignment. We're not necessarily avoiding our truth, right? And we're doing the work, but it just feels like sometimes we're staying stagnant and stuck. And that's where I'm at today, right? I'm really just in it. I'm in that place that feels embarrassingly familiar. As a shadow work coach, as someone who has written these memoirs and has done all of this work, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, why am I still here? Why haven't I moved past this? What is wrong with me, right? And there's that frustration of being in that stuck place. There's even an anger that lives there, and it's not at anyone else, it's at myself, right? And it comes back again, and I'm back again to that place of discontentment in myself, at frustration and anger at myself, even after doing all of the self-love work, right? So I'm circling back and feeling like I'm regressing somehow, despite all that work that I've done. And it can feel like failure. It does feel like failure. And even though I know, right, I know that failure is growth, right? This is the work. This is actually what the work looks like when it's real. Failure equals growth if you have the growth mindset. If you choose to use the failure to learn and shift and grow. If you take the time to sit with it, to reflect, to get real with yourself about what's happening, what's not happening, and you press forward with more clarity and truth, with more integrity and love that's conscious, right? Not just random, but aware. So I know this. But how do we get there? How do we actually sit with that failure? How do we sit with the uncomfortable? Because that's the hardest part, sitting with it. And that's what's at the center of all of this. because it's so deceptively simple, yet not so simple. Silence. The ability or the inability to sit with yourself. No one to talk to, no one to turn to, no friend, no family member, no distraction on your phone. Just you and the unrelenting nature of your own mind. The mind that can feel on the hardest days like it has total control over your life. And it's easy, right? It's easy to stay distracted. It's easy to escape it. So easy now, more than ever before, to just scroll or watch TV or make a phone call or put on a podcast, something, anything to distract ourselves and avoid that silence. And that's why real self-love, real true self-love is so rare, because it's so easy to be distracted and therefore comfortable, even though, the comfort is a vicious cycle that takes us back to our discomfort and our repeat misery. It's why mental health is at an all-time low, because we can't bear to sit with ourselves, to get real with what's making us so miserable and change it. We don't want to face it. We talk about self-love like it's a destination. Like, if we just do enough journaling, enough affirmations, if we, have the bubble bath with the candles and the determined love of our bodies, we'll arrive at this place of self-love. But I want to offer you something very different today, because I know the real prerequisite to self-love is so much more than affirmations and bubble baths. It's the willingness to sit in silence long enough to actually face yourself. And most of us, myself included, have spent a lifetime finding very creative ways to not do that. So when I was a teenager, I drew a picture of myself taking my head off of my shoulders and placing it neatly on my nightstand so that I could sleep. It was funny, me standing there placing my head on the nightstand, escaping my thoughts. Even then, before I had a single word for any of this, I understood that my own mind was somewhere that I desperately needed a break from. How wonderful it would be, I thought, to escape the prison of my own mind. Because unless you were raised by a yogi, you more than likely, like me, weren't taught to actually have a bonded relationship with your mind and body. Most of us arrive at adulthood completely untrained in the art of inner life. We're taught to read, to perform, to achieve, but introspection, self-awareness, at that level, the ability to slow down, to follow the breath, to check in with the body, see what you feel, observe your emotions, and then witness the mind and its thoughts without being consumed by them. Almost none of us are taught that as children. But imagine what it would mean to grow up with that, to be introduced early to Soham, the ancient Sanskrit mantra meaning I am that, just that, without needing to be anything else, to be separate from the labels, the to-do lists, our families, the human experiences we're living, the story. To understand from a young age that you are not your thoughts, but rather you are the awareness behind the thoughts. That you have a mind the same way you have a body, with thoughts that lead to emotions, sensations, behaviors, and energy. And that you can choose to discipline that mind the same way you discipline the body. To eat well, to move, to rest, to choose to change the way you think, and therefore the way you feel, and to respond to life rather than react to it. So in yoga, and with leaders like Sadhguru, we're taught to sit with a notion, I am not the body, I am not the mind. Like he has this app, so I remember he has this app, and that's the repeat mantra. I am not the body, I am not even the mind. I am not the body, I am not even I am not even the mind. On repeat, right? To let it fully sink in so that you can actually begin feeling a different way. And you're supposed to do this like 7 to 11 to however many however many minutes that you can. You try to, I think you start at like 2 minutes and you build up. But it's teaching you that the mind is something you have, not something that you are. And that distinction, small as it sounds, changes everything. So, speaking of yoga, the ancient yoga text from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali describe the entire goal of yoga in one line. Chitta vritti nirodha, which means the calming of the fluctuations of the mind. That's the goal of yoga, to calm the fluctuations of the mind. So yoga, which means unity, the yoking of the breath to the body and therefore to the energy, and then moving with that energy. We are taught that we are responsible for our energies. We meditate, and then, right, we follow the breath. We practice introspection, all in service of slowing that relentless movement of our mind. Finding the stillness underneath, finding contentment, because that is where bliss lives. Not in pure nonstop joy, but rather contentment in what is. So hum, I am that. Contentment in the concept of I am that, and that is enough. But here's the thing about the stillness, right? It's not just uncomfortable because the mind is loud. It's uncomfortable because when the noise finally quiets, what's waiting there for you is you, the real you, the you that isn't doing what maybe you know you should be doing. The you that may, and at first always is, not exactly living in alignment with the soul. And when we do this work, in order to truly find self-love and change the script around our self-hatred and unhappiness with ourselves, right? That means we have to face the places where you're living out of alignment, out of integrity with our soul. And that's why it's so hard, right? So I'm coming to you from a place of, I have done this work already. Like I said, that's why it's frustrating to be back here, because I've done this. I've sat forcibly for months in silence with myself, where my mind was loud and I slowed the fluctuations of the mind, doing the introspection, doing the repeat work, facing the different parts of myself I didn't want to face, facing the parts of myself that I did not like. I didn't run away from the hatred, right? And at first it built it. It built the anger, it built the frustration, it made it huge and all-encompassing. And then I had to break it down. And that's another part of memoir that really helped me. And then the reparenting, right, that came after that, because it's easy to look with the little me. It's easy to look at the little version of me that, everything was happening to me. But then, we grow from there, and then we start making our own mistakes. And that's where we're like, well, you should have done better. You should have known better. And we have to reparent and re-love all these different parts of ourselves. And it's like, okay, I did that work. and then like, oh, I thought I faced these fears. I thought I faced these things. I thought I faced this, lack of integrity in this place, or this people pleasing habit, or this, whatever it is. But that's part of it, right? We have to recognize where, once again, we are living out of alignment. So that was the first like massive, huge breakthrough that I had, years ago now, where everything fell away. I had to sit with myself. I had to see these things. I wrote my stories. I did the inner work. I did the reparenting, and I broke through this layer. And I was able to come into this awareness of this space where, like, I was able to see the separation of my ego and my higher self, right? The lowercase s versus the uppercase s, right? The lowercase self is the ego, and the uppercase self is that omnipresent watcher, where you're saying, like, I was talking to myself. So it's like your uppercase self is talking to your lowercase self kind of situation. And you can think of the ego, or I thought this was an interesting analogy, but you can think of the ego like a frightened employee who took over the whole company while the CEO was asleep. And the CEO is that part of yourself that you have forced into a dark office where where falling asleep is easy because they're locked in this dark room. You put them in there. They're like, maybe the CEO maybe didn't seem trustworthy at some point in time, right? And shadow work, the real work, is waking that CEO back up, turning the light on, sitting down with the CEO, actually listening to what they have to say about how things should actually be running, and not punishing the employee. It wasn't their fault, right? They were just doing the best they could with what they had, because we're not going to war with our own mind anymore, right? And this can also be, you can think of the multiple employees, and then you can dive into like family systems work where there's managers and firefighters, etc., right? These different parts that are running the show while the CEO has been locked in the office. And all of those parts are kind of removed, like at war. So rather we lovingly return to the seat of our own awareness from that place, deciding to be accountable, right? We decide, okay, it's time, right, to make things change and to see things differently, and to open up our mind and change. And usually something huge, massive, pivotal has to happen to kind of knock us into that place, because it's so easy to stay in the comfortability, right, of whatever life we're living, because we don't want to have to break the status quo. So I am that. The witness, the one who watches the thoughts without becoming them. That's where we need to be. That's the seat we need to sit in order to do the work of getting to a place of self-love. So let's talk about self-love. Not the version we're sold, right? The aesthetically pleasing, perfectly captioned version with vacations and spa days, but the real version, which starts with a question that most of us are afraid to ask because it doesn't feel like love. It feels harsh. It feels mean. The question, where am I actually avoiding myself? Where am I choosing comfort over true connection with myself, ultimately making myself more uncomfortable because I stay busy and distracted and constantly in perpetual motion, rather than sitting down and looking at the truth? Because let's be honest, busyness is a strategy. If you don't look, you don't have to change. And change is costly. It disrupts relationships. It can hurt other people's feelings. It can completely disrupt, like I said, the status quo. It can disrupt identity. And here's a big one, it can disrupt income. Because think about it, the mind isn't torturing you randomly. It's protecting a version of you that you're invested heavily in. Even if that version is exhausted and riddled with anxiety and overwhelm and resentment, you have still built that person. And that in itself, can create more of the anger at the self, right? Because the loathing, that anger, is that gap. It is the gap made emotional, and it is highly emotional, so much so that we avoid it and we distract ourselves. So the question is never really, do I love myself? The question is, can I love myself in a way that I show up for myself fully and remain accountable for myself, disciplined for myself? Do I love myself enough that I am willing to close the gap? And that is what silence demands of us. Not peace, but accountability, commitment, which is rarely cozy, right? What I've learned about healing thus far, and what I have to keep relearning apparently, because I'm in the middle of relearning it right now, is that it doesn't move in a straight line. It comes in waves and layers as we spiral upward. You do the work, you push through the things, you make the progress forward, you build momentum, you feel the shift, and then life continues. Because life does. And it ebbs and it flows. And one day you find yourself at a new frontier with a new set of obstacles and a familiar feeling in your chest that says, haven't I been here before? Haven't I already faced down this crap? Didn't I already deal with these fears? And the answer is yes, and also no, because you weren't ready to see the deeper layer before. The earlier work made this layer visible. That's not regression, that's access. The spiral keeps moving upward even when it feels like you're standing still. You are still making progress. You are still growing and becoming, as long as you keep choosing the love over the fear and recommitting to the growth rather than rolling back into the comfort of the old. And I will say, I am allowing myself, or have, kind of getting over it now, but I allowed myself a couple days. And I allowed myself a couple days to just curl up into my ball and watch, a couple shows and be numb for a little bit and take a couple breaths. But I can't stay there. Because for those of us healing in motion, in the middle of real life, motherhood, building businesses, showing up for other people, there's no controlled environment, no retreat center, and, 2 years of stillness. We're not in a cave in the Himalayas. We're living, we're parenting, we're working, we're building a life in a Western world with lots and lots and lots of distraction. And it isn't easy. And you deserve so much grace, because the waves hit in the carpool line and the board meeting and even in that quiet moment before everyone else wakes up. And somewhere along the way, for a lot of us, me for sure, busyness became an identity. Busyness became proof of worth. And sitting in stillness means facing that too. It means facing why we're so busy in the first place and why sitting still is so uncomfortable. Layer upon layer to look at. But okay, here's where I really want to land. Here's the shift that I keep coming back to, the one that changes the texture of all of this, is that Healing is not a destination you're late to. Purpose is not something you lost and need to find. Purpose is you, being the fullest, most complete version of yourself for the world, and that requires continued movement. The spiral upward through the layers, the willingness to keep showing up at those new frontiers and choosing again to look rather than flee, to choose awareness, to choose the loving and sometimes, even oftentimes, more difficult choice. This is what conscious living actually means. Conscious consumption, conscious parenting, conscious thinking. It all comes from the same root. The willingness to be awake to yourself. To ask not just what am I consuming, but why. Not just what am I doing, but who am I being. One of the most important things I've learned is that silence isn't the enemy. It's a gift. It's an opportunity. But you can't see it as an enemy. You have to get to a place where silence stops being a confrontation and becomes a conversation, even an uncomfortable one, right? And if you are non-confrontational like me, this is hard because you don't even want to have the confrontation with yourself. But you have to choose the compassionate, open-minded relationship with your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And that's when the relationship with your mind can change because you're not fighting it anymore. You're just sitting with it, listening, witnessing from a place of non-judgmental compassion rather than the frustrated disassociation with the quote unquote evil thoughts of your mind. They're not evil, my love. They just feel that way because they're showing you something you don't want to see, where the misalignment is. And if you start seeing that conversation, you can see it as like when you're talking to a therapist, they're just sitting and listening to you. They're not like immediately trying to respond to you, or a good therapist shouldn't be, right? They're just listening and allowing you. And you don't need to be defensive, right? You don't need to immediately attack your thoughts. You just need to witness. So here I am, what feels like back at the beginning of something, or maybe, just deeper into the middle of it. I thought, and I think part of me genuinely believed at some point the work would be finished and that I would arrive somewhere solid and stay there, that the fears I'd already faced would just stay faced, that the healing I'd done would hold me in a way that meant I wouldn't have to keep doing it. But that's not the nature of this life. The work doesn't finish. The shifts keep coming, the ebbs and flows, the new frontiers, the familiar feelings and unfamiliar forms, they continue. Life continues. And somehow we have to find a way to stop fighting that and start accepting it. Because of that acceptance, true acceptance of where you are, as you are, in the mess and the middle and the not there yet, that's where contentment lives. It's not on the other side of your healing. It's right here. So I want to leave you where I'm leaving myself today, not with resolution, because I don't necessarily have one. Like I said, we aren't looking for a final destination. We are on a beautiful adventure called life. But I'm making a decision today, a recommitment today. That teenage girl who drew her head on a nightstand didn't know she could sit with the noise and survive it, but I do know that. And knowing it doesn't make the noise stop, but it does mean I don't have to run from it anymore. Anymore. The lowercase self, the one that's frustrated and spinning and keeping score of every place that hasn't been healed yet, she's there, she's loud, and she wants to be heard. And the uppercase self, the witness, the one the yogis point to when they say so hum, I am that, she's patient. She's compassionate. She's just watching the story play out and reminding us, you are not the story. You have a story. You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are the love you seek. And she's not going anywhere. And she's not angry at you for taking this long. She's just here for the adventure of this human experience. And as I said before, healing is not a destination you're late to. Purpose is not something you lost. There is only one of you, and we need you. You are already it. The purpose is you, and you are just in progress, in process, like everyone else. So if you're in it right now, like I am, wake the CEO gently, with accountability and without contempt. That's the whole practice. Connect, become aware, integrate, build momentum. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to my ramble today. Thank you for doing this brave, beautiful work with me, with yourself. Just remember that you're just becoming more conscious a little bit all the time. And that consciousness in itself, it changes everything and it supports you. And just remember that if you're feeling stuck or lost or uncertain or behind or any of that, right now, just give yourself so much love. As long as you continue the good fight, it's all going to be okay, my love. And when you need support, when you need the love, when you need the community, the Caim Circle is here. That's why I built it. If today's episode stirred something and you're not in, come join us. We're doing the shadow work, the memoir writing, the real embodiment practices. We're doing the yoga, the breath work, the nervous system regulation, the somatic release, all of it. And we're just humans showing up and doing the best that we can. So if you're looking for that community, I would love to welcome you inside our circle. You can come find me at thecaimcircle.com. That's TheCaimCircle.com. Our circle is open. I'd like to offer everyone a few deep breaths. Go ahead, soften your shoulders, soften your jaw, and take a deep breath in. Exhale, let it go. Another one, deep inhale, nice, slow and smooth. Fill up your chest. Feel the expansion, and then exhale. You are safe. You are loved. See you next week.